We're here.
What do you mean, boss? Gosh, brother?
Yeah, Hulk Hogan!
Beware, I live.
M2J.
Oh, will you stop?
The mid-joint.
Danny loves Tumble Report, Moo Moo, Cluck Cluck Chicken, whatever, goodbye.
Danny loves
Buy or sell. Everybody take a drink. This show is so stupid.
Shawn Michael Spurs.
Beep boop. Meh.
For over 100 episodes, the very best fan-made wrestling podcast in the world today.
Doing the job.
Doing the job.
Doing the job podcast.
Doing the job.
Doing the job.
This is Doing the Job.
Where do we even begin this week?
Yeah, I am an angry, angry man.
Well, devoid of that, we have this ended up being an eventful week. Not so much in the TV realm of wrestling, but
No.
after over 10 months, CM Punk finally broke his silence, and we got his side of the story.
This is how we're starting the show?
Yes.
This is the big news story this week?
I mean, what else? Who better? Like, what else is there to talk about before that?
I'm just busting your webbos. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is a big deal, and I just hope that finally we can get some closure amongst the IWC. I'm using air quotes.
Yeah,
Because it's just every week we talk about enough with the Punk, enough with the this, enough with that, and it's just. I hope this is the nail in the coffin, so to speak. Unfortunately, and it breaks my heart to say that.
Well, before anything else, we should break our tradition here and introduce the senior analyst of analyzation immediately, because
There's some senior analyzing to do immediately.
Would that be me?
Oh,
Oh, look at that. I'm on the show within like 2 minutes. That's great.
I guess no fancy intro, no pomp and circumstance this week. This is a very candid and raw doing the job this week. I'm Denny Luggs, by the way.
I'm M2J.
I guess that'd make me Sean Spurge. Michael Spurge to you guys.
Sean Mitchell Spurge, the Maple Meatball.
The only place in the universe that anybody uses my middle name. So.
We got
Charmed, I'm sure.
I don't have a fancy food name. You're the Maple Meatball. M2J is the Pizza Bagel. What am I? I'm just like.
You're the greasy wop.
Of course.
Dago.
Greasy wop.
You're just a spicy meatball.
You are
To a cannibal, you're a dish.
You guys are real friggin' creative over here. Yeah, you're what are you, Italian? You're a greasy wop.
You're a greasy sausage. You happy?
Why do I gotta be a sausage?
Because that's how it is.
There's so many things we could say right now to this, but
Jesu Cristo, as Roddy Piper would say, baby Jesus.
Anyway, CM Punk drops an interview on Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast. Probably could have sold that interview to one of these RF video or these high spots or whatever for like thousands upon thousands of dollars, but gave it away for free.
it's a shame. I really thought we had a chance at landing that interview, but stuff happens.
I'm with you on that one, brother. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe just because him and Colt are friends. Obviously, we were second on that chain.
Had to be.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but where to even start? Because I feel like even as he was telling the story, it was like, let me go back. Let me go back as far as I can without leaving anything out.
He goes back to the pipe bomb, which he mentioned that he hates. That
he doesn't
called.
Yeah, he's just sick of everybody using the term. I mean,
I kind of had a feeling about that too, because whenever he refers to that promo, he always calls it like the Las Vegas promo, pretty much.
Yeah,
he never says pipe bomb.
Although you got it. There's some things that he had to say that I firmly disagreed with. Some things I somewhat disagreed with. If you come up with something that becomes a pretty popular colloquialism in America or anywhere, you should be kind of proud of yourself. Mm-hmm. Even if you feel like it might be being misused or abused, it's still cool to use this one word or combo word or expression that becomes a thing that people just start saying.
It's clobbering time, and he told Xavier Woods not to say anything related to that.
Right. Even though he got that from Sick of It All, and arguably Thing from Fantastic Four.
Arguably straight from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, he mostly. What's like the moral here, or the big idea that we got here, that he not only was. I mean, the two big things are that he was very frustrated creatively, which was obvious because we were sitting here watching it and wondering probably all the same things that he was wondering, why he wasn't doing this and that, and his physical and mental health.
Right. Which were. Can't he, after the story he told, you can't help but feel for the guy. Now,
man.
Now,
of course.
Yeah, it's hard to just not talk about the entire interview, like, which I feel like even though we try to keep it concise, we'll end up talking about probably just about everything he had to say.
We probably shouldn't. Probably should just run down, just like kind of like our thoughts. But yeah, I mean, for sure, it's hard not to. It's so much.
The meat and potatoes of the story really comes towards the end of the story, where he talks about how by the time we got to the Royal Rumble of this year, the night after the Rumble, I should say, he had busted ribs. He had a knee that he had surgery on and came back from too early. He had another knee that was in need of surgery, but he was just doing physical therapy on it.
Vince would just book him too early, and I owe you one, which added up to 3 IOUs.
Yeah, he kept. Well, he also he mentions that he wanted to. He was going to work against The Rock, but Rock wanted to work against a heel, and they basically told him, if you didn't turn heel, we were going to take the strap off of you and give it to someone else. Who he said was Daniel Bryan, which I was actually kind of shocked to hear that they were already considering him to be the transitional strap holder for The Rock all the way back then.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but that was the plans. They were they told him, turn heel or you lose the strap. He turned heel, and he told Vince, I'm going to lose all this merch sales because now I'm a heel. And Vince said, I owe you one. And of course, and all of these owe you ones that Vince accumulated amounted to nothing. But by the Royal Rumble, he had a concussion that he hadn't fully recovered from. He had all these nagging injuries, busted ribs, bad knees, bad arm, and he had suddenly had this lump on his back, which he would find out only after he left was a full-blown MRSA staph infection.
Yeah, he thought it was doctor kept saying, it's one of those fatty deposits, and he's just I've watched you cut them out of other wrestlers plenty of times.
And by the way, that doctor was on Jericho's podcast not too long ago.
He seemed like a good guy, and
Punk had nothing good to say about him. He kept calling him a lazy. We don't say it on this show, but
lazy, no good for nothing, no good Nick.
Right,
and that he didn't know what he was talking about. He gave him a bunch of Z-Pack antibiotics.
So he keeps pumping full of antibiotics. So the story about where Punk crapped himself was actually a true story.
I remember when that happened.
Yeah, I do too. It was against Dean Ambrose, and people were like, there was someone like slowed down a GIF of him like landed on the mat, and like the ref like trying to flick a piece of something that was black out of the ring, and like it was really blurry. You couldn't really see what it was. And I was like, nah, there's no way that happened. But as it turns out, it happened.
Yeah, I remember there was the big poop debate.
Right, the great poop debate,
Poopgate.
Yeah,
2013.
But what ended up happening was he just told them, look, I'm a mess right now. Like I can't keep going like this. Like I need a whole bunch of things fixed. And supposedly they just were ignoring him, and they kept telling him, well, first you got to sign this, you got to do this, we got to do your physical thing, you got to pee on this cup, blah, blah, blah. And he just walked over to Vince and Hunter and said, listen, I am very, very much in a bad way right now, and I need to dip for, some amount of time so I could recover, and you're sticking all these things in my face, and they basically, the plan was he was going to wrestle Triple H, which that was a rumor at the time, which I guess is true now, and although he was supposed to win, he said, you know what? He was like, screw you. I should have beat you 3 years ago. And I'm pretty sure we've covered that on the show how many times?
Oh, man. That's like the biggest biggest debacle.
That made no sense at all at the time. I was furious when I saw that, and it just reminded me of how annoying that was. Like, that was literally Triple H being a 12-year-old boy saying, I have to beat him. I have to win. I have to beat the guy who's getting popular now.
Yep. And it made no sense. I mean, besides like Kevin Nash texting himself,
right?
Like that.
No, like,
that threw me for.
No, we all came to the conclusion. Like we said, let we play the devil's advocate. Let's see how this goes. And by the end of it, we're like, the Triple H just wanted to beat Punk and just came up with a story to beat Punk. It was ridiculous. And we remember that the original story was that he was going to fight Nash. That was what it looked like it was building to.
Well, then Nash wasn't cleared. So.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
We've heard stories about Nash, doctor, I don't want to be cleared for this match. Okay. But
is that so? Was that a thing?
I've heard things like that. Those could just be rumors, but I've heard if Nash didn't want to work a program, he'd get a doctor to say he wasn't cleared.
Perfect?
But
you said he didn't want to work perfect?
I don't know.
But you said did you not just say that? He didn't want to work Mr. Perfect.
I didn't say that, no.
Well, then I'm crazy.
Work a program.
Yeah.
Program.
Yeah.
Program. Okay. Who wouldn't want to work Kurt Hennig?
Well, I would love to work Kurt Hennig, but
oh Jesus, I'll put him over.
No, obviously. But he and then he was getting lower paychecks at the time. He was asking a lot of questions about how the network was going to affect their bottom line, and finally, when it came down to them telling him, like, well, you're going to fight Triple H at WrestleMania, and that is a main event, he said, I'm not stupid. The main event's the last match. He's like, you can advertise that there's 2 main events, 4 main events for a pay-per-view, but there's one main event. We all know there's one main event. Whatever closes the show is the main event. And he was like, and last year, me against The Undertaker was the best match of the night. No argument. And apparently they all agreed with him. And he said, okay, now, did I make anywhere near as much as all of you guys made for that WrestleMania? And
nope.
Apparently the answer was no. And he was like, thank you, I'm out of here. And, he's kind of right in that respect. The thing that bothers me more about that than anything else is that Triple H is an actual employee of the company now. He's not a 1099, he's a W-2. And not only is he a W-2, he's the highest paid employee of WWE. He makes $1 million. He makes $1 million annually, or thereabouts. And so to tell me that you are in a position where you can book matches, and then you book yourself on a high up in the card match at WrestleMania, and then get a WrestleMania payday on top of that, and now as an employee you have luxuries like medical insurance, you could expense travel, and all these other guys, they have to like pay their own plane ticket.
Yeah, he's not an independent contractor anymore.
Right, but he gets paid. He gets a payout from when he works a card, and that just seems like BS to me. Like, I'm sorry, but like you're making $1 million. You're not only a paid employee, you're the highest paid employee. Like that's it. That's your salary.
Yeah. You did it. You made it, kid.
Yeah,
you did a good job.
So to know that he says, okay, well, I want to wrestle Brock Lesnar at Mania, and I want to win.
I mean, WrestleMania 29 is going to go down as a real big debacle. Like the whole layout of that show, a total mess. And Punk said, he had to work Rock, and he obviously was against, he had his longest reign, and he was against dropping it to Rock. And he was even mentioning in the interview, in the podcast, that he worked it out to be like 500 days, whatever, blah, blah, blah. His idea was the 3-way. All right, you want to do Rock and Cena again? 3-way. I'll drop it. He's like, I'll drop it in 5 minutes. I'll drop it in 30 seconds. Just, I did the main event. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. For whatever it's worth at the time, too, that's what I thought should have happened. Because I did the math as well. I was like, well, by that point, it's going to be 500 days. It's going to be WrestleMania, triple threat match. I said it on this show, so I mean, and I think that's what we should have done.
I remember kind of coming to that conclusion and saying that would actually be not, because I remember they did that tease where Punk, when The Rock had the new title, and Punk came out with the old one. I think he attacked Cena, and then he pointed at The Rock in the ring with the new title and said, "I want that one." And we thought that was going to amount to something, and then it just didn't. But.
Yeah, that had us. That had all the juices flowing. But then when actually, I want to email, because you know how they're going to do another podcast,
right?
This week coming up, and I actually want to email because I want to ask.
Well, you better do it, because the podcast is going to drop in 2 days.
Yeah. I gotta do that. When Cena and Punk had that match on Raw, and it's still, to me, I think is the best match in Raw history. I mean, just try to argue that. I was like, oh, there's the main event. There's the main event of WrestleMania right now. That there's the main event that we should be seeing at WrestleMania.
And he went on to see, he pointed out too that all these part-timers were coming in and beating him and then leaving. And
he said, Vince, who's here tomorrow?
Right, who's here Monday?
Puts Taker,
right.
Who's here on Monday?
Right.
Puts Taker over, puts Lesnar over, and then now it's time for WrestleMania, and he's working Triple H.
Now, here's the thing, though. Very mixed thoughts about that, because he is working with this perceived top-tier level of wrestler at this point. And he's the only guy. I mean, this isn't necessarily saying good things about how the business is being structured, but he's the only guy from the present generation, other than John Cena, who's getting booked in these matches. Which, in some way, you could look at that and say he's really made it. He's perceived by the office as the other guy that is credible to work matches against guys like Brock Lesnar, The Rock, The Undertaker. I mean, look, The Undertaker's wrestling Triple H 2 years in a row. Before that, he's wrestling HBK.
Shawn Michaels.
Right.
But to just play devil's advocate for a second, though, I understand that, but at the same time, like he said in the interview, like he's losing those matches. So basically, congratulations, you're good enough for those matches, which is fantastic. But
right.
You're going to lose all of them, and that's how you're perceived now. You're good enough to lose big matches.
Right. Now
those guys.
that was my flip of the argument, is that he should be able to win at least one of those along the way. Like they could have if they would have booked WrestleMania the way that he wanted, he could have beat The Rock at Elimination Chamber, and then they could have finished it at Mania, where he's in the main event for 5 minutes. That being said, if that's the way it went down, he wouldn't have been in the best match of the night with The Undertaker. He would have been in the stinker that was John Cena and The Rock. Well, maybe he would have made that match better. We could hang up on what ifs for the rest of our lives, but it's a hard fence to drop off of, because you can really go either way on that argument.
Well, or in my opinion, he just holds it to drop it to Cena clean as a sheet, like he lost to Cena clean as a sheet on Raw and the month prior.
Right.
I don't think you could do that, because there's obviously The Rock in the mix.
No. Right, because The Rock was in the mix by then.
He was in the mix, but they did Rock Cena the year before. You had your once in a lifetime,
right? I agree.
Which is phony baloney that you did it again, and it's a slap in the face to the fans. I mean, look, we've ranted about that forever, but I mean, if they would have had that main event at 29, we're looking at the best WrestleMania main event since Brock and Kurt Angle. All right, the match quality wise, define me again,
right? And then, and again, that was another I owe you one with him saying, okay, like, well, if you do this, I owe you one. And he did, and he posed a question, which I have an answer for, by the way. He said to Vince and Hunter, who on the current roster has main evented a WrestleMania at this point? And the comparison he made is that AHL players need to play NHL players in order to get better.
Right.
And so I went back in my mind about 10 years. To WrestleMania, I went to WrestleMania 21 to WrestleMania 30, and wrestlers that hadn't wrestled a main event of a WrestleMania prior to WrestleMania 21, it was Batista, John Cena, Edge, Randy Orton, The Miz, and Daniel Bryan. Those were the 6 new faces of the main event of WrestleMania.
Well, this is before Daniel Bryan was, going to be put in the main event. So
right, but I'm saying, like, I'm including WrestleMania 30. Right now. Okay, and I'm including it for a reason, because so Batista's in the main event of WrestleMania 21, and then he was in. I think he was in a few more, right, along the way.
No, he was in the main event at 21, and then at 23,
I couldn't remember. By the way. 23. No, in 23,
he wrestled Taker. He dropped the belt. He dropped the world title to Taker in the middle of the show. It was one of the main events.
Right.
But
I was going to ask.
Main event.
I couldn't remember if he was in the main event or if it was like.
No, we're talking that was HBK and John Cena. We're talking the main event.
Right. That's what I was asking. But he was in WrestleMania 30 in the main event, so he was He repeated a main event spot. John Cena. He's repeated how many main event spots? Edge. That
became the guy. So.
Yeah, Edge closed out WrestleMania 24, right? That was Edge and Taker?
That was it.
Okay, yeah. So Edge pops in there. Randy Orton was in WrestleMania 25.
25.
And 30. And then The Miz in 27. And now, Edge is no longer part of the roster. Batista's a part-timer. He's not really part of the roster. So
not really at all.
Huh?
Yeah, not really at all.
So that leaves those 4 guys: Cena, Orton, Miz, and Daniel Bryan. Those are the 4 guys on your entire roster that have main evented a WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a problem.
Look, it makes no. It just makes no sense for like the whole thing. I've said it all the time. The whole run was he had the title for 14 months. He main evented 4 out of 14 pay-per-views. And how do you have that long run? How does that not become a Mania angle? How does that not go to Mania?
Right.
But that's all.
You know what? But I've also thought this in the past. I don't know if I've expressed it on the show, but I kind of feel like they knew where they were going with the John Cena The Rock thing to WrestleMania 29, and they probably thought it doesn't really matter where the title is, and they just left it on the same guy for over a year because they knew that by the end of that program it was going to be on it was going to be on The Rock, and then it was going to be on John Cena.
No, that could entirely be 100% because they probably knew that the day after WrestleMania 28, what the skinny was,
right?
And it was like, all right, we can rely on CM Punk to deliver as the champion. So there you go,
right?
So kind of like the problem is that he was the best guy to come up, on his own, make a name for himself, deliver in big matches. That wasn't the company John Cena, Batista kind of guy. He was the next, biggest star that they had going for them besides John Cena. And he felt like he deserved the world. And he did.
He did. He definitely
wasn't John Cena.
And again, he even said to them, if you paid me the same way that you pay these guys, then that'll convince me that I really was in the main event, or I was considered a main eventer for that Mania. Did you? And they didn't.
Right. And as often is the case in these situations, it's not really about the money; it's about the respect.
Right.
That money, that comes with the money.
Well, the thing was like they all probably got paid around the same, and he got paid less than them. Which of course is ridiculous. Which ironically, well, not ironic even, is best for business because if you can get a top level performer to get paid like a mid carder, then you get to bank all that money. That's great.
Of course, the only problem is now you lose all the money from him leaving the company.
Right.
That you would have made by him being on your show.
But
so much.
Then
money.
a few little things. And he mentioned how he never really had bad vibes with Triple H the whole time he was there. There was plenty of ideas that he went into the office with, and they would get thrown off to somebody else. They wouldn't give it to him, like such as movie roles, sponsorship deals, etc. He did,
and then they'd end up on somebody else, like John Cena.
Exactly.
Or Brock Lesnar.
Oh, he was supposed to be the EMT in 12 rounds too.
Exactly.
That would have been something, right? And he just kind of was, what's the deal? Like that's during the year. That was on the podcast. He's like, don't mess with me, Hunter. Like that's during the European tour. I'm the champion. Why am I not going to be? You kind of like, that.
Right.
It's kind of smells like a conspiracy here. Like why you doing that to me? Oh yeah, let me get back to you. All of a sudden announced Randy Orton 12 rounds too. He's like, really? Like I have to find out on the internet. You can't just call me. So he felt like he was getting slighted always. Like Hunter never liked them. They just no respect. They treated him like crap. I
really like the part where they were urging him to take a piss test because they were trying to tell him that that's part of his job. Is what he got to do. This guy did it. And he looked at Hunter and said, "Did you take that piss test?"
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of which, he threw some accusations around, and he referred, on no uncertain terms, to Ryback as steroid guy.
Steroid guy, that he kicked him hard and busted up his ribs, that he threw him on a table and didn't take care of him, and that he actually confronted him and said, "Now, can you just are you just a terrible wrestler or are you a big dumb idiot?" And where he was like, kind of like, "Oh,
no." What he said was, "Did you do that on purpose or are you big? Or
yeah,
are you
all right,
terrible?"
Yeah.
Are you a dumb as something and you suck?
Blah blah. And Ryback came back on Twitter, which was actually kind of funny. I'll give it to Ryback. That he put like a bunch of like Ryback figures around a broken CM Punk figure on the floor through a table, and then he actually said, just by the way, he never confronted me. So then again, take everything CM Punk says with a grain of salt.
I mean, obviously you got it, because the way that CM Punk told the story about his, if you really kind of think about the picture that he paints, the confrontation that he had with Vince and Hunter before he walked out, he's doing all the talking, and Vince and Hunter are just standing at him, like maybe with like one word answers or like looking down at the ground and going and then at the end of it,
he said Vince hugged him with tears.
Yeah, so Vince starts crying.
Which you know what, I actually believe that though.
I mean, sure. I mean, sure, but just like the picture that he's painting, like he might as well have mentioned that like Hunter and Vince had fangs and red eyes and like shadows around them. And like instead of having like lower halves of their body, they had like black smoke coming out of like a black lamp or something, and like
gotta be black smoke.
Yeah. Okay, white smoke or blue smoke. But anyway. Yeah, but then he ragged on the dog, and there was a few things though I can't help but wonder about, and I can't help but like when he said, and Cole Cabana, like, I'm glad that they're friends, because Cole Cabana called him out a few times and said, well, sometimes you can be kind of a jerk. Sometimes you can be difficult.
Yeah.
Like he said, he got the concussion at Royal Rumble.
Punches.
Huh?
I said, yeah, Colt Cabana didn't pull punches when he needed to.
So Punk gets concussed at the Royal Rumble. He rolls to the side of the ring, calls the doctor over and says, I have a concussion. The doctor says, okay, what do you want me to do? Not in a, what do you want me to do kind of way, but more of like a, what's the plan? Like, is there something that you want to do? And the doctor says to him, all right, we pulled Kane out here. Kane can pull you out of the Rumble early. And he goes, no, I'm going to finish the Royal Rumble. He's like, well, what? Like, it's not like it's a cut. And
I gave you the way out.
Right, it's a concussion. Like either you keep wrestling or you stop wrestling. You can't, like, the doctor can't give you a pill and say, okay, get in there and fight, kid. And so he walks out. He goes to a doctor. The doctor diagnoses him with the MRSA infection. And you
should be dead.
Does he contact his employer and say, so that thing I had on my back was a staph infection? I need some time off to recover. I've got to let this fever die. Or did he just kind of never contact them? Because I mean, we've all been sick from work.
No. He got the diagnosis after he walked out.
Right, but I'm saying
he was already done.
No. See, that's where you're wrong, because he made it clear that he was told that he was suspended, and his suspension was up after Mania. And from the sounds of the podcast, he would have probably came back after Mania.
I don't think so.
Because he looked at it and he said I did the math. It was the day after Mania, my suspension was lifted, and then he went on to say, Mania came and went, and I didn't hear anything from anybody. It sounds like he just wanted some time to recover, and given 2 or 3 months, he might have been in better spirit. Like he didn't close the door. Is really what the message there is, that at least that I got, is that he was willing to play ball with them. He needed to go home and sleep some of this off. Like he needed his joints to come back to at least some capacity of what they used to be. He needed his fever to go down. He needed the lump on his back to go away, and he had 2 concussions like within 3 months that he had to kind of get over. So they tell him you're suspended. He goes okay, and then he said he didn't hear anything, and then it was when he stopped getting his royalty checks. That's when something was amiss.
It sounded to me like the walkout the night after the Rumble was indeed a walkout, because you're contradicting yourself in a way where it's kind of like, this is the walkout, I'm sick of this, I'm done. But it's kind of like, well, I'm not fired, so I could come back. What was it? Were you trying to come back?
Well, that's the part that I wonder about, because and that's what I was getting at with, he goes to a doctor and gets, the doctor diagnoses him with a staph infection. I mean, if you're me, if I walk out of work, tell him I'm not feeling well, I'm in bad shape, whatever the reason I leave work. If I go to a doctor and he says you got a staph infection, like I contact my employer and say, so I have a staph infection, I'm not going to be at work for a while. Like, I don't just not show up and not keep them abreast of the situation.
I think this is the unfortunate part of where the game of he said she said starts, is probably like, I'm sure if WWE wanted to have an actual rebuttal, it would probably sound a lot different from his story.
Right.
And so I don't think we'll ever truly know what the real story is there.
Right.
And the other problem is, too, is, he's on a podcast for 2 hours straight talking about the situation, and, how is it in any real life situation when you're telling a story, like, especially something this in depth, afterwards, like, it ends and you go, crap, I forgot to say this, and this, like,
right.
about the story. So who knows? I'm sure there's a lot of elements of the story we're missing just because he flat out forgot to tell them.
Right. Now, look, I mean, they opened up the forum to fans, so people will be emailing them. Probably some people will say, did you tell them? There's a good chance he just might have been so disgruntled, he said, I didn't want to talk to them, or, something, but something that simple.
That's probably what the answer is.
But yeah, he did get, he wasn't getting his royalty checks, which is illegal. If money that you've already earned, they can't hold from you. They can only withhold money that might come in, after.
Right, and he did go on to say that he did end up getting everything.
Right,
there was a back check that wasn't any good, that had expired.
Well, that too,
yeah. So that was his main deal. And but then also, he was suing for the current royalties, which, whatever. Basically, he lawyered up, he said, and he, between the 2K using his likeness, the back royalties, and whatever other damages and this and that, he didn't disclose all the information, but he said that he got paid, and thank you very much. Right. He got what was owed to him.
So the explanation to what whatever court or trial that they had obviously was enough to be suitable for him to have a victory. So maybe,
but he did say in the podcast that he's lucky that they're lucky that he's just done with it and he got his and he could just be quiet, because that whole deal about you're an independent contractor, but then it contradicts with them like basically doing things that it would be if you were an employee. Like, I don't know how to exactly to describe it.
Well, that's been an argument for years, though. I mean,
that's been an argument for years.
To this day, I still have no idea how WWE gets away with that legally.
Exactly.
Jesse Ventura was one of the biggest opponents of that, and he actually won a case with them. And if they use his likeness or his even if his announcing appears on a match on any of their DVD releases, they have to pay him royalties, which is not.
He got that set up, yeah. And actually, if you want to go back, and I'll put this over, did Jesse Ventura on the Roddy Piper podcast? He tells that whole story and about that lawsuit. That he was like, no, screw you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm getting mine. I'm getting what's owed.
And if you go back on some publications that they make now, some DVD compilations and stuff, there'll be matches where you just won't hear his voice. Like you'll hear Gorilla Monsoon. They'll have Gorilla Monsoon's audio only and no Jesse Ventura.
Wow. Well, yeah, Punk basically said he can bring down this whole dog and pony show because of the way they do business and his lawsuit, but. So apparently they settled, and he got his chunk. Now, real quick, to Vince, all he did on the Stone Cold podcast was just said, "Hey, listen, it is what it is, and we wish we could do business in the future." That's like the best paraphrase.
Right?
There's not really much else to say.
It was a very political answer. I mean, I guess it had to be.
Politicios.
But he did paint the picture, and it was the first thing I thought of, because CM Punk does say in the podcast that they sent he essentially got a text from Helmsley or Hunter or Triple H, whatever he wants to be.
Paul
Levesque.
Paul
Levesque. That it was 2 days before his wedding, and he said to him, "Hey, listen, like, do you have time to talk?" And he replied, "I'm getting married in 2 days. I'm going on my honeymoon. I'll talk to you as soon as I get back." And he got a FedEx to his door.
Well, I think it was funny that he was like, "Yeah, you want to talk? How about those royalty checks you owe me?"
Right. But
he threw that in there.
But
let's get that straightened out, and I'll talk to you when I get back from my honeymoon.
Suffice it to say, he gets his termination papers on his wedding day, which he took offense to. Whether that was planned or that was already in effect, who knows? It seems like it was. He told him, "I'm getting married in 2 days," and then all of a sudden he gets his termination papers. Vince McMahon apologized for that publicly, for what that's worth. But apparently that was that ticked him off to the point where he said, he openly said, there is no business relationship with me and them, and there never will be again. And and what Vince had to say was, we've had our falling outs with talent in the past, and we've always mended our ways with them.
Hogan, Warrior, Bret Hart.
Right, and that was the first thing.
That's why they say never say never.
And that was the first thing I thought while Punk was saying that. Like, I can understand he's mad, but like, I could see cooler heads prevailing 5-10 years if it takes that long, and he might say, okay, like, maybe I was a little hot-headed, so were you, we're sorry,
Look, you never say never, and there's always a chance, but knowing Punk's personality, I feel like there's don't you dare, Sean.
Yeah, what?
I thought you were gonna make a bad reference. Knowing Punk's personality, I gotta believe that he is not coming back.
Well, I was gonna half agree with you. Basically, I was gonna say, I guess if there is, I believe at one point he will be back, just because that's what they do. But like, if there's any one guy, not that we know him personally, but if there's any one guy you believe that if there's gonna be somebody who doesn't come back, it'll be him.
Like, he'll be the guy that blacklists.
Like, if there's gonna be that guy who just legit does not come back, like, I can see him being that guy, but I do believe at some point he will be back.
Because he's got those convictions, like the whole straight edge thing or any other thing where he's like put his foot down and he's like his opinion about someone or he's not doing that. He usually pretty much sticks by his word,
But I was literally marking out when he
literally marking out.
Like, I just turned
literally marked.
I did. I turned into like, a 5-year-old boy watching wrestling when he was talking about how what he said to Hunter, "I resent you for not putting me over 3 years ago like you should have." And when he was telling Vince, he was telling Vince, like, I can't.
It's Hunter's privilege to work with me at WrestleMania. But I shouldn't have to.
But he was telling Vince, "I can't believe at this point at the time that you haven't you don't understand that Daniel Bryan is your guy right now.
Yeah, how do you not get that this is his year?
You've just omitted him, and you're going to make this Batista and Orton, and nobody wants to see that. And he said he's white hot right now, and he used some expletives in there. He said he's white hot right now, the way I was 3 years ago. And he's, what did you do? Points to Hunter and says, you fed me to this guy.
Fed me to this guy.
I was like, thank you. I'm so glad to hear. I'm so glad to hear him actually say that. And Cole Cabana was right there to say, do you remember you trying to convince me that this was like an honor that he came out of retirement to work with you? And Punk was just like, I had convinced myself of that.
Crazy.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you're in a situation you don't like. You try to convince yourself that it's a good thing, so you don't feel like a piece of crap.
Right.
You don't feel depressed about it.
Well, again, it wasn't an awful thing, except Punk should have won the match.
Yeah, that should have been the moment right there that, because that was his kind of turning the corner, showing that like I'm a top guy, I'm a major player in this world. And when he goes over Cena, but it's not the cleanest, it had the whole awesome angle with the title, and yeah, he gets screwed by Del Rio. That's fine. We know that he'll get it down the road. It's just he has to battle the powers that be to get there. That's a fine story. That's great. But when you're battling the powers that be to get back to the title, you have to win on that road. You have to, if the title is the goal, there's obstacles to get past. If Triple H is the obstacle, losing to that obstacle puts you dead in the water. And it did for us, except once he won at Survivor Series, we said, okay, whatever, he's got it now, let's just forget about all that crap. But it's hard to. We like to look back on angles, on storylines, on segments, in this world as a whole, as a group, to go back and watch everything, and it's very tainted. I don't want to go back and kind of relive that whole time.
Well, that stifled his momentum at that time, and when you look back at it, that booking makes no sense at all. That
none.
Punk wins.
Find me a reason.
Punk wins the title, but then they give a secondary title to John Cena, and then they merge the titles, but then Del Rio cashes in only to lose the title. He lost it to John Cena and then won it back, right? And then lost to Punk. Yeah, that whole thing made no sense. Now, and it really it was just to draw Punk out of the title picture. And in reality, that was probably just Punk getting a receipt from Triple H for getting massively over, getting white hot, because he went on record and just bashed the McMahons and bashed Triple H and just said McMahon's an old out of touch moron. His what was it? His idiot daughter and doofus son-in-law.
Idiot daughter and doofus son-in-law.
Right. Yeah, and he. That's all he had.
Come on, bro. You don't know by now, bro.
I haven't recited it in my head in 3 years.
No, I have the words engraved over my bed.
I don't doubt it. But so he gets over by saying that. And obviously, I have to beat him now. And that's Triple H's MO. The same way
I need to do it for the boys.
The same way Triple H.
Family.
The same way Triple H had to beat Brock Lesnar. I get to beat Brock Lesnar. It's like, screw you. Brock Lesnar, could legitimately kill just about the entire locker room, and I get to beat him. I'm 10 years his senior, and
Yep.
I'm
surprised you guys haven't thrown it out yet. Your famous phrase for Triple H that you guys always say.
But Dad,
What?
There it is.
Yeah.
But Dad, I gotta go over the guy.
Yeah.
Because I'm the game.
and I think
It's a Triple H combined with Nathan Explosion is what that
yeah, and I think that speaks volumes. That it's one thing to have Brock Lesnar go in there and destroy John Cena, and you say, okay, well maybe that makes him defeating Punk a little bit more credible because he's destroying everybody. But then you have that one nagging, Triple H got to beat him at Mania.
The fact of the matter is that from 2011 on, Triple H should be laying down to everybody like a diva to Johnny Laurinaitis. You know what I mean? There's no business going over CM Punk, going over Brock Lesnar. These are the guys who are going to be, important in the company right now.
Right.
Brock Lesnar is a different thing.
Unfortunately, this
you can go forever. Yeah.
This whole interview kind of reignited my disdain for Triple H. It's hard to like Triple H when you hear the story and you just say, wow, that guy really is a son of a bitch.
You know what it all boils down. Well, he's a son-in-law, of a bitch. That doesn't make sense. Linda is a saint. What this all boils down to, really, is this age, it's not age old now, but the thing that's been like a big beef amongst the WWE nowadays is Triple H and Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon said this with Stone Cold. They love to say that we have all the tools. We, do all this. It's on you to, if
wait, hold that thought.
Hold
that thought. Are we? You want to transition now into the Vince McMahon podcast and?
Yeah, we will from here. Yeah,
right,
but I do want to say one more thing about the CM Punk podcast before we go.
Yeah, say one more thing. Yeah.
I will. I'll just finish this thought though. We have all the tools. It's on you to get over it and blah 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 blah. And it's just, especially with the CM Punk debacle, it's all a load of crap because CM Punk, white hot, the guy, the topic of discussion in 2011. Why is he losing to Triple H on a throwaway pay-per-view? Daniel Bryan is the main story, the main attraction, the most over guy in the company in 2013, going into WrestleMania 30, fighting the Authority, and he's not even considered. He didn't even have a definite match on the friggin' card at WrestleMania 30.
Right.
And this is all this, you want to say rumor. It's not rumor anymore. CM Punk came straight out with it. All we thought it was going to be Batista, Randy Orton. It was going to be them. So it's total nonsense to think that, oh, well, if you get over, then, we got you. We got your back. You did it. We take care of you. No, they don't. They pick the guys they want.
Well, because Steve Austin, the thing about this podcast was he was asking him the tough questions, but he wasn't pursuing the tough answers when Vince McMahon would kind of bat it away. He would just kind of roll with it. And he said to him, when I was in the locker room, we were all trying to outdo each other and really trying to fight for, what we got. And he says, it feels like now there's so many shackles on the guys, they can't do that. And Vince, and he said something like, everybody's afraid to take those chances because they're afraid to piss somebody off. And all Vince McMahon said was, don't piss anybody off.
Yeah, well, he also said that this crop of superstars or wrestlers aren't as ambitious,
right? And he named Cesaro by name, and he said, "Look, he's like this guy Cesaro. Like what is he missing?"
He's he's got it all.
And Vince was like, "I'm not quite sure yet." And then he actually went as far as saying, "Well, listen, after the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, everybody was feeling this guy." And then you kind of secured him as a heel when the crowd was, chomping at the bit to cheer for him, and then you just kind of let him flounder. And Vince just kind of was like, well, he just didn't have that it factor, and when he does, we'll figure it out. But Austin just told you, no, like you mishandled this guy, and you didn't really address it. And that's when Vince went into that pitch about how these guys have the tools. And the first person I thought of about when he said these people have all the opportunity in the world to get themselves over, and once they do, Zack Ryder, right away. And I was really hoping Austin would jump in there and say, okay, well, what happened with Zack Ryder? And he didn't. He didn't.
Why was the guy made himself? He was over like Rover. He didn't have to be the main event. He didn't have to be the champion. But why didn't he remain on television,
right,
in a good spot where you got merchandise, you got ratings, it was all there. It didn't make any sense.
Right. And
you didn't like him, so you buried him. You made him look like a fool, so people stopped caring about him, so you could put someone else there. That's all it is.
Right. And there was a lot of Q&A like that in the Vince podcast that bothered me.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I wanted to say about the CM Punk thing was just a little, you want to talk about an angry rant. I don't know if I should mention this person by name, but someone in our Facebook group wanted to ask the question, and here's the quote. Because of what CM Punk said about Ryback, how he's dangerous, he can't work, blah, blah, blah. Think there's any chance they might have wrote Ryback off the card for at least tonight, talking about Raw last night, until the Punk stuff dies down?
Can I just say, Denny,
Go ahead.
when you posted your posting on Facebook last night, I tried to imagine what your tone of voice was. And I pictured it as being, hey guys, look, Ryback's on TV. Am I close?
Yes.
Okay.
No, actually, I wrote it like this. Hey guys, look, Ryback's on.
Okay,
TV.
so you went for the false enthusiasm. I was thinking it was going to be like a deadpan, like point at TV.
No, it wasn't deadpan.
Point at TV and go like, hey guys, look, it's Ryback. There he is on the television. Like
it was just kind of like let's say me and you were sitting down and watching Raw.
Me and you were sitting down and watching Raw.
And you actually turned to me before Raw started. And you said that exact asinine quote that this person said, right? And I'm like, bro, you're out of your mind. There's no way that they're going to pull one of their top talents off the show because a former employee has some bad things to say about him. It's totally ridiculous to think that would even be an option.
By the way,
in this world.
Speaking of the CM Punk thing dying down, did you notice tonight or last night the crowd was chanting CM Punk when AJ was out there? Then they just kind of stopped, and then they started chanting AJ Lee.
Yeah, finally.
Good.
Jesus Christ,
Good.
yeah. Anyway, so that'd be like if you said that, and I'm like, bro, what are you nuts? Like I said, there's no way. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. And then, Ryback comes, 5 minutes into the show, there's Ryback, and I just look over at you, and I'm like, hey, look, Ryback's on TV. Hey, look at that.
Yeah, no,
look at that.
My delivery would have been hey, look, there's Ryback.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You know what? That is also effective.
But yeah, no, the AJ Lee thing last night, it almost kind of reminded me of, do you remember when Christopher Daniels was in ROH after one of his stints in TNA, and the crowd would chant FTNA, FTNA, and he would stop the crowd and just start pointing to the letters ROH and get the crowd to chant.
Like let's talk about what's here, what's going on here right now. And that's the problem with wrestling fans, man. Everybody wants to be smart. Everybody wants to be like, we know about this and we're so cool. You go, I don't want to be a broken record. You go to a wrestling show and you get involved in the show. What's there? That's it.
Okay.
It's that simple.
That's fair.
What I know this is kind of a stretch. What was the downfall of WCW? All they cared about was what WWF was doing when they should have concentrated on what they had going on.
And you got to think it's kind of ironic. You're thinking about it now. They talk about how the talent making all their own decisions is the inmates running the asylum, and it's like look who's running WWE now. It's an inmate.
Paul.
Yeah, Paul Levesque.
Yeah, the Joker.
Booking himself on cards, getting a double.
Joker's running Arkham.
Yeah,
I'll always defend the man in the respect that like the guy pretty much has earned just about everything that he has.
How do you think?
I think that he kind of takes advantage of his position.
I don't see how he has earned everything he has more or less than most of the former roster or current roster, for that matter.
I'm not saying more so. I'm just saying
He
like
was ambitious enough to do whatever he had to do to get there, and
Yeah,
that's you can take that however you want to take it.
But he's there, and he's the one in that position. I mean, according to him, him and Hunter always had Vince's ear. They were always trusted guys. And did I say him and Hunter? Him and HBK. And, HBK isn't around, so now he's there. And he also just coinky-dink married the daughter, so he's the guy. That's
right.
it.
And that might be the way the chips fell, but
It's the way the chips fell.
Yeah.
But, it's not like he was Barry Horowitz over here. And, he was a great wrestler. Still is.
But he just anyway.
Anyway, this isn't Triple H cast.
Well, let's just wrap out the Pump thing. What do you guys take away from this as a whole?
Sean asking the tough questions.
I take away from it that he's extraordinarily mad at them, and he has just about every right to be. There might be one or two smaller points that I disagree with him on, but all of the larger stuff I am in complete agreement with.
Yep.
And
large stuff.
He's one of, if not, he's probably, other than maybe John Cena, which he said, he's the only one that would talk back to them and say, speak his mind and say, what the hell? Why are we doing this? What? I don't understand this. You got to explain this to me. I don't agree with this at all. And he pointed out that a lot of the guys won't do that because their dream was to be in WWE, and out there, they don't want to do anything to jeopardize that, and they would rather fall into an abyss of mediocrity than take the chance and propel themselves. But right now is definitely not a good time to approach him about ever working with them again, because he's just going to say no and probably say something very harsh. But I do agree with Vince McMahon that we've seen how many wrestlers over the year. I'm never working with Vince again. I'm never working with Vince. Period. I hate everybody there. Everybody there hates me. And then 5-10 years go by, and all's forgiven, and they're in the Hall of Fame, and they guest host Raw, and they're in comedy segments randomly. So,
okay,
Oh.
yeah. I
think he's never coming back. That's it.
All right, fair enough. My takeaway is that everybody's a douche. That's my
It's
overall
true.
takeaway.
It's true.
I mean,
It's true.
you got. That's the other thing. You got these are Triple H and CM Punk and Vince McMahon, for that matter, these are three massive egos in the same room trying to coexist,
who have a history of like just massive douchebaggery too.
Right.
So like that's my gigantic.
It just so happens that in this story, CM Punk was slightly less of the douche than the other two of them.
Yeah, of course, and if everything he says is true, and who knows if it is, I'm with you guys. I almost totally agree with him in these scenarios, but it almost exposes everybody for what they are, for how they conduct business. And it's really a shame because when you think about it, we're going to continue to watch the product every week, and then in the back of your mind, though, at least in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, like, what's going on backstage to all these guys, and what are they going through?
Except Kane. No one ever has anything bad to say about Kane. Glenn Jacobs is apparently the greatest human being to ever live.
He's like the nicest guy
He's
ever.
a gentleman and a
I want
scholar.
him to be my dad.